I mean, look, I think that imposter syndrome comes from also like I didn't come through the traditional routes to get here, and I kind of over time have just said to myself, what does it matter? Why do you need to come with that? And I've grown to believe some of the special stuff is because I haven't been taught the way other people have done it. I've had to go out and figure out how to do a lot of stuff by myself. And that is more powerful than just following a set of rules because they were told you they're the rules. And believing in that sort of unlocked a lot of that imposter syndrome.
Today, I'm pleased to have Henry Hargreaves. Henry is a creative powerhouse who has built a career on bold pivots, staying true to himself always, which is the reason why I have him on. From his early days as an international fashion model, Henry has continued to redefine his path to become a renowned food photographer and artist. Known for projects like No Seconds and Food of the Rainbow, his work combines art, storytelling, and social commentary. Today, we'll explore how Henry has embraced reinvention, living on his terms, and found purpose through creativity. Welcome, Henry.
Hey, thanks, Stephen. Great to be here.
I wanted to start out with you talking about your background. I think you have a really fascinating life. Can you share that moment where you decided to switch your career?
I grew up in New Zealand. I was always interested in the arts, but in New Zealand, especially in the 80s, when I was growing up, no one made a living as an artist or doing anything creative. But there's a real narrative in New Zealand called the OE, which is overseas experience. So, because I spent the first 21 of my years of my life in a place that was just so monocultural, and I was just like itching to finish university so I could go traveling and explore the world. So I went to Southeast Asia and was backpacking through Vietnam and Thailand and Burma, which I think Myanmar now. And while I was there, I got asked to do some modeling, which completely caught me off guard because, I hadn't been vastly successful with my with the ladies growing up in New Zealand. I kind of thought it was a bit of a joke and a bit of a have at the time. And I didn't realize there was kind of like this, skinny, like white boy aesthetic in Europe that we weren't exposed to in New Zealand. I did a bunch of modeling jobs in Thailand, and that really started opening my eyes up where I was on these shoots and was like, holy moly, this is cool. Like, here's someone who has this idea of what they want and they make it happen and they bring an idea to life all within a day. And it kind of got me thinking, is like, that's what I want a part of in my future. Once I traveled, I got exposed to different careers and different career paths.
What then made you pivot from being in front of the camera to become, to move behind the camera?
From Thailand, I then went to London, I got an agency. One thing led to the next, and 6 months later, I was in all the campaigns for Prada and Yves Saint Laurent and Jules Sander and doing all the runway shows and things. And it was awesome. But every 6 months is the same routine. It's the same Milan Fashion Week. Then you go straight to Paris Fashion Week. And then I go to Tokyo. Then I go to, don't get me wrong, an amazing experience for a young guy wanting to see the world. But once it happens the fifth, the sixth time, you're a bit like, I'm just going through the cycle. And where I want to stop or where I get bored is where I'm like, what's the benefit? The only benefit here is money. I'm not learning anything new. I'm not really seeing new things. Like, the people kind of are variations of people I've already met with similar interests. And I'm like, I want some new stimulation. I want something different. And I came to America, and I came out here for Fashion Week. And when I arrived here, I loved it. I was like, this place is like so many opportunities, options. People are enthusiastic. There's a subway that runs 24 hours. You're never more than a $20 taxi ride from where you need to be at the end of the night. Bars are open till 4:00. There was just like, I was like, this is where I want to be. And so I was like, I want to live here, but I don't want to model anymore. I want to focus on other things. So yeah, I mean, really the pivot came about because I was like, I'm not interested in only doing something to make money anymore. I want other challenges. You know, I had to reinvent myself. And so I got here and I got a job in a restaurant. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to try to pursue this dream of being a photographer.
What gave you the strength, I guess, to make that pivot?
I get bored easily and I don't like predictable things. I even every day when I go to work, I make sure I go a different route than the way I went the day before. What gave me the strength to I think it was more the curiosity, the motivation for regret is like a big driving factor for me. And I'm just like, I'm going to kick myself if I don't get out of my ass and go and do something and push myself. I think you need to get uncomfortable. You need to do these things because, you know, that's when the satisfying stuff comes after that. You know, it's where you can pat yourself on the back and say, good on you, you did that. I also see things a lot of the time in the factor of time. Every year in New Year's Eve, I have a practice where I write down all the new things that happened to me over the last year. And I feel I will never be upset about aging as long as there's a lot of stuff to write down the whole time. And that's always my fear of like, oh man, if that starts to, you know, if there's nothing there, that means I'm really like, just, I'm not being useful. Like there's no point in me actually being here. So I really am motivated by that.
You didn't have to struggle with self-doubt that you would be able to make it as a photographer?
I have imposter syndrome still to this day. I saw the photographers. I was like, I want to do that. I tried to assist. I sucked at assisting. I'd gone from one hierarchy on photo shoots to the bottom of the thing. And I found that transition really tough. So I just decided I would start shooting. And the first commercial jobs that I got, I basically gave the assistants the money. And so I was like, at least they know what they're doing with the lights. And I would actually quiz them. I'd ask them, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And that was how I learned. I just operate this very simple like world that I'm comfortable within and I know what to do. And, you know, I think that something else is like, you're like, is it good? You know, and the thing that I learned around that was I don't know if it's good. Well, I don't know if other people are going to find something good, but I do things that entertain me. And as soon as I do things that I'm trying to anticipate trends, I'm trying to do something that I think will be commercially successful, like that people will want to collect this series because of this, it becomes inauthentic. And so I was like, if I do things that I want to see out there and entertain me, even if no one else likes them, at least I had fun and a satisfying journey in creating it. And that's a good enough victory in itself.
I think a lot of people think of themselves as non-conventional or having this imposter syndrome. And it is actually those things that make them different, that make them successful. Because we don't need, you know, a replica of somebody else. We need somebody unique. And you're definitely one of those people.
I had a broken camera at one point that had these light leaks, and I was like, you know what? It's my look. Yeah, like you can't replicate that, but it's because the camera broke. It wasn't intentional.
How has your creativity changed as you age? You know, and specifically now, you know, your dad, and a big part of what you do now is raising kids. So, how has that influenced your creative process and the interest in what you're working on?
I've got to be disciplined about it. I'm not someone who just it rains down and it kind of comes the whole time. I have got to be disciplined about kind of searching it out. And I find screens are one of the biggest things that is a challenge for me. And I find that, again, coming back to if things are predictable, I don't find I'm getting much creative input. I want to listen to different music every day. Like I hate the way that you put like Spotify just starts playing the things to you that it thinks you like. I'm like, I actively have to search out different artists because I want beats in my head that I can't predict. Like even today, I had a couple of meetings around the place, and I'm like, I'm not going to go back to the studio. I'm going to go and like just float to different neighborhoods in the areas that these are, and I'm going to stick around there and find different coffee shops and different things and go looking in different windows. And I've got to be disciplined about doing that, because as a parent, your world they love predictability. I'm aging in a creative field. I'm on set, I'm often 15 years older than anyone else. And, I often don't get a lot of the cultural references, or the other way around, which is even more cringeful when I talk about cultural references and no one's ever seen The Simpsons or, or anything that I'm familiar with. I see that as an opportunity to like learn, to change, to, open my eyes to stuff.
How do you stay culturally relevant?
I'm interested, and I am like not trying to be stuck in time. It is I think it's a really easy trap to fall into, that all the music that you listen to is from the era you were growing up, that, was groundbreaking then. And you can do the same with movies and TV shows, and maybe even just watch, the movies from the actors you're familiar with. And then, yeah, I really am like, okay, I'm gonna be open to all of these other inputs. And I think there's a time where you see people younger than you being more relevant than you, and you've kind of got to swallow a bit of pride. It's easy to dismiss it all. Everything that came after me is like, is a bit is a little bit like less impactful. I'm like, you know what? There's some damn cool stuff coming out by those kids, and there's damn awesome stuff coming out from people who don't talk like me, don't look like me, don't act like me.
Yeah, you're obviously very open to things. And recently you've, I wouldn't say pivoted, but you've really explored and opened up a whole new area of photography, and you've gotten into the AI aspect of it. Can you talk about what the impetus of that was, and how you went about it, and also just the work that you're doing around that?
So I started hearing about it, started seeing stuff, and it completely turns the whole photography world on its head. Hold on, you can make images by writing what you want to see. And in the photography world is not excited about it in general. And I was a little bit on that like echo chamber of being like dismissive about this new technology. But I kind of was like, God, I sound like such an old fart. Like I'm talking about something and putting something down that I don't really know anything about. So I wanted to educate myself on it and like just learn a little bit. And as I did that, I was like, holy moly, this is actually like, there are so many awesome things within here. And I think the other thing is people just think it's this like button that you can press and like it does it all for you. But, it's really just a limited toolbox, and you need creative vision to be able to like bring things to life and use it to like solve problems. And I love the way it can do things that I don't have access to. Like I'm not that interested in it doing something, taking a picture of something that I could go out into the real world and find and do myself. What I like is where I can suddenly open up times and places that I don't have access to. To me, that's cool. That's what it really is. That's what started getting me excited. I was like, I would love to start infusing this into my work. And it can be anything from helping me brainstorm what pictures are going to look like. Like at the moment, the big newspaper in France, Du Monde, has asked me to do a whole thing for their weekend section. And I'm actually making all the references in AI of what I want it to look like. I'm testing the light out of what it will look like, and then I'm going to make it for real. And so I can kind of fast track all the options and do it that way. Or in other things, I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a photo of something and put it in an AI environment. Or I might make a background and put it on a TV screen that's behind what I'm shooting. And I just feel it's shaken up the industry in a way that the old establishment is being turned on its head. And I just love it when things become unpredictable again. There's a little bit of a reset and you can jump in. And honestly, the other two things about it, Stephen, is I feel like it's given me another chance to be relevant again as I'm aging. I also think that it's allowing me to be able to work remotely. Mm-hmm. And that's something, as a photographer who does most of their work in the studio, I was never able to do before.
Talk about one of the projects that you shared with me was the one about The Shining. Talk
Yep.
about that process to me and like what the experience was. And
Yeah. Okay. So process around some of these things. I so as ideas come to me, and they can be totally random. It might be like reading about a someone who made a sculpture out of butter, and so I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we made a little film about going to a country fair in Ohio in the 80s, and they had a butter sculpting competition? I make all these butter sculptures. What would that look like? And now there I'm like, I can bring that to life, and I did. 4th of July rolled around, and I was like, oh, I want to do like a little AI 4th of July video. I remember at the end of The Shining, they had a photo of the like 1921 4th of July ball, and it had Jack Nicholson in it, and it was kind of like a nod, like he's a ghost, and this whole thing. And I was like, wouldn't that be fun for 4th of July to make a video based on that ball from 1921? And what is really cool is you can bring in style references and character references and things into these AI worlds that you create. And so I was like, let's bring in, like, let's pretend the twins were there. Let's bring in like the maze. Let's bring in these different elements. And then I'm going to make it look like the 1920s. I never put stuff out intentionally trying to go viral. I put this 4th of July thing out, thought it was kind of fun and cheeky, and like completely blew up, several million views, like tens of thousands of like comments and things. Coming back to reactions, there are a lot of really, really, there were a lot of really shitty comments that were made.
Mhm.
And I've learned to really appreciate those, because if people don't dislike something, no one really likes it either. And I think you're 10 times more likely to have someone to talk badly about something than they are to take the effort to write a compliment. So it's
Mhm.
almost like every time I get something bad, I'm like, you know what? There are 100 people who actually appreciated this, but they just couldn't be bothered writing. I also really like engaging with people who write these comments and hear them out. Go more into this. Like, what's your thinking around it? And a lot of people remind me of my early reactions to AI, where they've just got these kind of canned responses of like, AI's bullshit, AI's like, no. There's this term called slop, which is used in the AI world, and that's AI that's made without any creative direction.
Mhm.
That's essentially ChatGPT, write me a novel about this, and something comes out and you just dump it out there without editing it. And anyway, and I'm like, that's my thing. I'm like, it's not slop. Maybe AI may not be your cup of tea. You may not like what I'm doing, but at least I've gone in here with an idea and tried to tell a story and piece it together and done that. But look, I am very excited and enthusiastic about AI in the creative space and how it has just changed the way we problem solve and creativity. And
You seem to have this internal confidence about dealing with this negativity that I really admire, because I have a lot of self-doubt in what I do on a day-to-day basis, and I don't always react very well to criticism that is not constructive. Specifically in the social media space, you can get a lot of unconstructive and very malicious kind of commentary, and you said you enjoy engaging with that. Where does that strength come from, or how do you cultivate that strength?
I don't know how much of it was learnt and how much of it was just the way that I was wired at birth. But yeah, to go through that, I also years ago spoke on a panel about going viral with photo series, and they
Mhm.
had about 5 artists, and we'd all had series that had gone massively viral on BuzzFeed. And everyone told their little story, and everyone had been traumatized by the feedback they got when their series went viral. And I was the only one that was like, I'm the only one who like saw the upswing to this, and everyone else was kind of like too terrified to put anything else out because they took it all so personally. I mean, look, I feel like we all have those impulses to write something shitty sometimes, and I'm just like, when I have those impulses, it's not the best version of me. So I'm
Mhm.
like, it's probably not the best version of these people who are writing this either.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'd rather open up a dialogue with them than try and shut them down or just be defensive for the sake of being defensive.
Any listeners on the podcast feel stuck or unsure about making a career or life change, what advice do you have for them? Because you've made a lot of these pivots. It seems like a lot of it is innate in you and just the person that you are. But when you analyze that a little bit, what advice do you have for them?
You know, I also have a exercise. I haven't done it in a while. I will have a conversation with a version of myself that's 5 years older than the version that I am now. And what would that version tell me? And inevitably always is take the chance. Otherwise, you're going to regret it.
I love that. I have a similar exercise. And the way it started was that I was thinking about what advice would I give my 20-year-old self or like 20-something-year-old self. And what I thought about was, I actually wouldn't want that person to do anything different, but I would want him to do it with less anxiety, right? Just like enjoying the moment more, right? Because
Right,
now I have all these responsibilities and I can't do all these things. And back in the day, I had all this freedom, but I was so stressed out because I wanted to just succeed so badly, right?
right.
And then I had this thought that, well, what would my advice be to me now if my 80-year-old self would talk to me now?
Yeah,
And essentially, it was would be the same advice, just like, dude, just relax and
yeah.
enjoy the ride, do what you do, but just do it with less anxiety. So I like that exercise a lot. So last question for you. Are there any books, podcasts, or any other resources that you would recommend that could be helpful to people in midlife that can inspire them to live a life on their own terms, or any other recommendations you might have?
I mean, podcasts, I really love this series called Desert Island Discs. It's actually just a BBC radio show that's been going every Sunday night in England since the Second World War. And it still goes now as a podcast series. Every week they have interviewed someone who's led an interesting life. They pick 7 songs, 1 book, and 1 luxury they can take to a desert island. And they talk about their life while they like have this narrative of the music and going through the music. And it gets these people having these discussions because they talk about the music that are very open and vulnerable. And I think it's really cool. It's to hear these different journeys, and they're not always famous. They're just people who've led these interesting lives. And I find that really motivating. It's like the first disabled politician, in the UK and how they overcame things. And I think that like hearing those kind of stories, they motivate me much more. Really, they're like hearing these little like insights that I'm like, oh, these things I can relate to. And so I think that's one of the ones that I love.
Henry, thank you so much for your time. It's always a
Yeah,
pleasure
absolutely.
to chat with you. It was very inspiring. Thank you.
Absolutely, Stephen. Thanks. And thanks for listening, everyone. Bye bye.